Hi everybody, it's Karen Costa, your Learning Community Facilitator. And in today's Monday Manual, I'm going to walk you through your midterm assignment for this week. So as you can see here, I'm within the 501 course and I'm in Learning Modules. Okay, so let's scroll down here to Module 5. And you'll see here that the topic for Module 5 is driving your learning. So last week in Module 4, you started to dip your toes in the water of research. This week, we're shifting back to your self-assessment plan, and you will be completing that, and that is your midterm, and you will be completing that midterm this week. Keep in mind, you've already completed a couple of milestones for this, so you're not writing it from scratch, you're building on what you've already done. All right, so let's scroll down here. I want to point out that your 5-1 discussion is optional, but that's a place where you can ask questions about really anything, but specifically your midterm, which is, again, is the self-assessment development plan. So I want you to read over this here, okay? And this tells you, it gives you an overview of the self-assessment, but then I want you to go into assignment guidelines and rubrics, and you're going to go to the midterm guidelines and rubric here. So let's pull that up. All right, so here's the deal. This is where you're going to find the detailed instructions for this midterm, okay? And remember, see here, this project is supported by 2 milestones, which you have already completed in modules 2 and 3. And now you're going to complete the final version of your midterm in module 5, okay? So the big picture here is getting to understand yourself, your strengths, and your challenges. And the thing about challenges is we've got to come up with a plan, right? So if I know that I struggle with time management, and I do because I'm human, then what's my plan? Okay, how am I going to overcome that in my studies? So let's scroll down here and you'll see what we call the critical elements. So critical is an important word here, right? Critical means these elements need to be in your submission, all of them. They're critical, okay? So you don't have to organize them in this way. You can be creative, you can step out of the box, but you do need to address all of the components, okay? So let's focus in here first on background. Who are you? Well, people have written a book on who they are, right? So you've got to find a way to articulate that in a rather succinct fashion here. So who are you? And we all are going to define that in different ways. Where did you come from? What's important to you? In which degree program have you enrolled? And then for your background, you're going to summarize your major findings from your self-assessment. So you completed that in my Foundations lab. So you're going to summarize what did you discover from that about yourself, okay? And there's a lot in there that you can utilize. So part 2, we've completed background. Now let's focus on part 2. This is your development plan, right? So, okay, now I know who I am. I know my strengths. I know my challenges. Now what's my plan, okay? So we're going to have you talk here about intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation, we've talked about that before. It comes from inside, right? What is going to keep you going? What is going to motivate you in times of trouble? I've shared with you in different spaces that when I was in graduate school, I had probably this happened more than once, but there was a moment I remember writing a research paper. I was in the office of the little apartment that my husband and I shared, and I was on the floor crying, surrounded by research, piles and piles of articles. And I didn't want to I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired and I was frustrated. And my husband said, Karen, we're going to Chili's, right? And basically the point of that story was that I needed to step away. I needed to take a break. And I needed the support of a loved one to keep me going. So the question, how will you keep your big picture goals in mind even during times of difficulty and stress? The answer there might be, I'm going to turn to my best friend, or I'm going to turn to my mom, or I'm going to turn to my teenage daughter, or I'm going to turn to my spouse or my boss or my colleague. That might be something you want to explore. Right? What reminders or habits can you employ? So habits are critical. So getting up, setting the alarm every morning a half hour earlier than you used to, and building a habit of getting up and coming in and checking your courses for a half hour just to set the tone for your day. Well, your wellness might be it might be a spiritual exercise or a physical exercise that you partake in, how you eat, how you sleep. These are reminders or habits that you might use to help you succeed. Self-efficacy, your belief in yourself. Okay. How are you going to help yourself believe that you can do this? What resources are you going to use to help build up your muscles of, yeah, okay, yeah, I needed help with this, but I can do it. The writing center, academic advising, your professors, okay? Time management, that's a big one. So what strategies are you going to use to address these? So what are you going to do when when it all falls apart? Or when my last 2 weeks were just crazy, right? And I got through them. I relied heavily on to-do lists, right? I relied heavily on, taking time each night, 5 or 10 minutes, to talk to my husband, part of my support system, about my challenges. Okay. So what are you going to do when life doesn't go as planned? How are you going to keep everything in order? And then academic preparation. So we all have different areas of strength and challenge. My strength, as an example, is writing. My challenge would be things that have numbers involved. What type of support services am I going to use for that, right? So those are the things you're going to discuss in your development plan. You're also going to make sure that you are writing a well-planned and well-organized academic paper. Okay, you're going to use all of the things you've learned throughout your life about writing, and you're going to organize this. How do we organize? We use outlines. If you write a good outline, your paper can write itself. That's what they tell us, right? It's not that easy, but a good outline is worth its weight in gold. Okay, you're going to build on milestones 1 and 2. So you've already done some work here. You've already completed your self-assessment. You've already developed some thoughts around intrinsic motivation, etc. And now you're going to take the feedback from your professor you've received on these, and you're going to mold them into this midterm self-assessment development plan. Okay? 3 to 5 pages, double spaced, using the citation standards from your discipline. If you're not sure what those are, you talk to your professor. I strongly recommend you use the Purdue OWL website. Purdue OWL has a ton of information about citation. It got me through graduate school and beyond, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. Okay, and here's your rubric. So this shows you exactly what you need to do. Let me give you a little tip here. After you write your first draft, come back and grade yourself using this rubric. So go to the first one, background. Did you meet the proficient criteria? Okay, let's look at that. Did you provide an appropriately detailed background and answer all of the prompting questions? So what does that mean? It means you need to go back to that background prompt, check off, I got this, oops, I missed this, okay? So what would your grade be there? It might be, you might grade yourself and say, oh, if I was a professor grading this, I would give a 70%. And then go through and grade yourself on that. And then you can see where you can grow. So you can say, okay, I need to grow on background. Let me look at this. I need to answer that question. And I also want to paint a rich, detailed picture. How do we paint a rich, detailed picture? We write in such a way that someone who can't see or experience what we see or experience, it can see it and experience it for themselves, right? By describing it. So we give lots of details. For example, if we're talking about time management and how it's a challenge for us, what does that look like? If you say time management's a challenge for me, what does that look like? It might look like, in my case, a bed that is left unmade, or dishes that are left in the sink, or leftovers for the second night for dinner, right? Now can you see what time, when I described I had a rough couple of weeks, a busy couple of weeks, can you see in your mind what that looked like for me, right? If that gave me anxiety to be busy for a couple of weeks, which it did, how does that impact you, right? It impacts me by maybe feeling a little antsy, maybe feeling a little stressed, and maybe I can describe what that looks like. So I'm painting a rich and detailed picture, okay? So grade yourself. Look through all this, grade yourself. And finally, let me go back here and point out once again that you have a writing coach here. You've got a writing coach at SNHU in addition to the learning community, which you can access here, and your professor. You've got your writing coach. So you've got a lot of resources to help you with this paper. Those tips should get you well on your way. Please come back into the learning community if you have questions, however, and share them. If you have a question, the odds are somebody else does too. So by asking your question, you're helping yourself, but you're also helping others. All right, everybody, that's your Monday manual for this week. Have a great day. Take care.